of the American Conservative Union came out this past week and said the reason that we lost, and again, who is this we? I think there's a gerbil in somebody's knickers. I'm not pointing any fingers, but I think it's Eric Erickson. Anyway, the GOP is too white, too male, and too old. That from the president of the American Conservative Union. Let me repeat that. The GOP is too white, too male, and too old. So it's a bunch of old white guys. That's the GOP. And that's why we, quote-unquote, lost. Now, it's interesting to note here as well that one of the members of the board of the American Conservative Union, again, the organization that runs CPAC, one of the members of their board is a man by the name of Suhail Khan. Suhail Khan's father helped start the Islamic Society of North America, the Islamic Council of North America, and Muslim student groups on American college campi across the fruited plain. All these groups were mentioned in the Holy Land Foundation documents as, quote, friendly to the Muslim Brotherhood. I talked about this with Claire Lopez last year on the old network that shall not be named. And interestingly enough, Suhail Khan has yet to distance himself from any of these groups, and furthermore, in his position on the board of the American Conservative Union, has sought to normalize relations between the American Conservative Union and the Council on American Islamic Relations. He has sought to downplay the work of people like Claire Lopez and Frank Gaffney and the yeoman's work that they have been doing, pointing out, basically the obvious about Islam, and especially a large segment of members of the Islamic faith who are, not very open, not very tolerant of other religions. So Suhail Khan, on the board of the American Conservative Union, trying to downplay the extremism and violence of Muslims around the world, whose father, again, helped start groups that were mentioned as friendlies to the Muslim Brotherhood. He sits on the board of the American Conservative Union. The president of the American Conservative Union says the GOP is too white, too male, and too old. So what would be the prescription for dealing with that lack of diversity in the GOP? Well, more outreach, of course. We have to reach out. We have to welcome people in to the GOP. Yes, we have to welcome people into the GOP. And who do we need to welcome in? Well, let's see. Probably Muslims. Of course, women, Hispanics, minorities, all of these other groups. Which leads me to point number 2. What else was blamed for, quote-unquote, our loss Tuesday evening? Well, it's the demographics. Hispanics, women, minorities, gays, we need them. Karl Rove and Coulter and others have touted this BS since Tuesday, that somehow the GOP is not tolerant to minorities. Did you watch the Republican convention in Tampa in August? Every single primetime speech at that convention all week long was spent pandering to Hispanics, women, minorities, and yes, even gays. Every single one had some line in it pandering to ethnic groups, or sexual orientations or gender groups. So what more could have been done? What more could have been done to reach out to demographics? The sad fact of the matter is, folks, despite the demographics, despite this polling that has come out saying that 60-some% of Hispanics that can vote in this country voted for Barack Obama, despite all of that, demographics was not the problem Tuesday night. The fact of the matter is, Mitt Romney got 2 million, over 2 million less votes than John McCain. And what did we hear in 2008? Oh, well, it's the enthusiasm gap. There just aren't many people that are enthusiastic about the GOP candidate, so they stayed home. Well, they may have stayed home in 2008, but even more stayed home in 2012. And who was it that stayed home? Not the Hispanics, not the women, not the minorities, not the gays, not all of these people that we have to pander to bring into the GOP. No, the ones that stayed home were the reliable old white male Republicans. 2 million of them, less than 2008. And that is on top of the fact that 8 million less voted for Obama this year than they did last time around. But yet the one thing that that the finger hasn't been pointed at so far this week is an enthusiasm gap. Well, let me tell you folks, it was an enthusiasm gap. You know why? Because the argument wasn't lost. The GOP didn't lose the argument. Liberty and freedom and first principles did not lose the debate Tuesday night. You know why? Because they were never brought up in the debate. There was not a candidate articulating first principles or liberty. Now, we've had a bit of well, let's call it what it is, a cluster fornication this past week of people trying to say, well, what are the next steps? Where does the GOP go from here? What happens from here? What do we need to do? Well, one of the main things that I've heard is, oh, we need to modernize the message. The message is stale. We need a 21st century conservatism. People like Matt K. Lewis and others have spouted this. So, conservatism needs to modernize. The message needs to be more modern. Well, does the message need to be more modern? Is that really the problem? What is the modern message of the GOP? If the message needs to be more modern, then the question needs to be raised, more modern than what? What was Mitt Romney's message this time around? Can anyone tell me? Oh, tax cuts and pro-growth policies. Yes, tax cuts and pro-growth policies. Oh, okay. So we're going to talk about economics. We're going to talk about tax cuts and not mention Art Laffer. We're going to talk about pro-growth policies and not mention the 86,000 pages in the Federal Register that were added just last year. It's not that the message needs to be modernized. It's that the argument needs to be made, period. And it has not been. Now, when I come back on the other side of the break, I'm going to read an article from American Thinker. And while it is a bit somewhat defeatist in its tone, there are a lot of good nuggets in this article. So I'm going to read that on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Sons of Liberty show here on Conservative Broadcast Media on Spreaker.com. And once again, thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned. We've got another hour to go on the other side of this break, and still a lot more to get to and a lot more to explain. Was Tuesday night a setback? To a certain extent, yes. But there are lessons to be learned, and I fear that if we listen to the wrong people, those lessons will once again, as they have been over the last 85 years, those lessons will not be learned. So, be back on the other side of this. Stay tuned.
The Sons of Liberty show isn't here right now. Leave a message.
Feeling lonely this holiday season?
Looking for little human interaction?
Do you want to feel contact in certain special places?
Then why not go through security at an airport?
The TSA.
TSA agents are ready and standing by to give you a little something extra to feel thankful about this holiday season.
The TSA.
What are you waiting for? I want to check under your testicles.
Spending time with a TSA agent couldn't be easier. Simply book a flight departing from any American airport. When selected for a full body scanner, say no. You'll be pulled aside by a TSA agent, and that's when the fun begins. And you never know who your agent will be.
It could be me. Or me. Or even me.
But it's probably gonna be us. Take off your damn shoe.
The TSA. It's our business to touch yours.
Welcome to the Bureau of Womanhood Conformity. Independent thoughts are considered subversive because all must agree with our leader.
When it comes